I would like now to ask Johnny about the challenges of this process, this translation process. I mean, a book with so many words, new words, isn't it? Even for me, I mean, some of these words, encantados, etc., are new for me as well, and I'm Portuguese. Um, so I would like to hear a bit about the challenges, the main challenges of translating this book.
So there's a lot that I can say to respond to the question, but some of it I fear only translators will find interesting. So I'm trying to find what thread of this might be interesting to folks who don't do this very strange work of translation. But one thing I can say that I think is perhaps useful to know about my approach to the book, and this is something that Itamar and I did speak about when we had sort of back and forths about some of my questions. I really wanted to respect the fact that the book reads like three different entities speaking to you, you know, and I wanted to have that. I wanted to have the immediacy of the experience that I had when I read it in Portuguese. The power of the book for me would be undermined by having passages that get a little bit too clunky, dealing with some of the untranslatability of certain words. So I say untranslatability in quotation marks because as a translator, you never accept that anything is untranslatable. You just realize that you have to be creative in your approach. So all this to say is that sometimes you have to err on the side of something. And I would just say that as a translator, I erred often on the side of music, so that if there's a word, let's say a bird that Itamar has in the original language, and there's something about the musicality of the speech that I wanted to keep. I didn't want to get caught up in this sort of how do I say, and the awkwardness sometimes of trying to render some of those terms. Even encantada itself, encantada, it's like I might need like a paragraph to explain what that is. So I try to err on the side of the music and to try to intimate through context what's happening on the page, because I want it to sound like I want to sound like, Bibiana is speaking to you, and I don't want it to read like there's some American guy who's acting as an intermediary between Bibiana and the reader. So some of like the little questions that came up with the editors, for example, is that I insisted on taking away all of the italicized things that they originally wanted me to italicize, because it just got to be so ridiculous after a certain point. Itamar maybe doesn't know this, but a lot of the words in Portuguese show up in the English translation. And I think sometimes it's not important to like explain what cachaça is. Like you know that it's an alcoholic beverage when you see someone throwing back a shot of cachaça. I don't have to like give you, a sentence or two about the distillation of sugarcane. Like I don't have to sort of explain that this particular bird has this kind of sound. Like I think that it can get in the way. I wanted it to sound like someone is speaking to you. I wanted it to have that kind of immediacy. And so that was actually, to kind of get back to your original question, for me, that's actually the harder thing to work on than if you have a word that's difficult to translate. When a word is difficult to translate, everyone knows that you got a kind of a tough choice to make. So you make your choice and people can argue with you, but they understand why you made that decision. What can be harder is the stuff that seems easy. It's sort of a lesson in life, we're often at our best when it's difficult, but sometimes we are less attentive sometimes when we think that something is simple or easy. And I think for the translator, that can be the shall we say, the trap that's waiting for you. Like, oh, this part I could just be on autopilot. If you do that, then you often do something horrible. So